chain smoke and I say fuck a lot. When I accept myself for the way I am, I accept you too. Viewer discretion advised.
Large epidemics and pandemics occur on a regular basis throughout history, and it will occur again.
This is a video they produced in 2010, and it has now been deleted. And it's been scrubbed from their social media. It shows Theresa Tam's lunacy and thirst for government overreach. She presided. Watch this.
If there are people who are non-compliant, there are definitely laws and public health powers that can quarantine people in mandatory settings.
I've been working on a longer video, but I happened to come across this Jimmy Dore video recently where he talks about Theresa Tam and a 2010 movie called Outbreak, Anatomy of a Plague. They compare the 1885 smallpox outbreak to a hypothetical one in the near future at some point.
The minute anybody thinks that they have a smallpox case, everybody from the local public health to the provincial public health, to the Canadian public health, to the CDC, to the World Health Organization suddenly becoming incredibly excited.
We'll be sending notifications very rapidly within the provinces to the hospital so that we can tell physicians smallpox has reappeared. Please look out for the following symptoms. And we may send them photographs of examples of what smallpox might look like. The main part of the national contingency plan for smallpox is a strategy that we call search and contain.
AKA contact tracing. One more thing. The original documentary is 126 minutes long, but the only versions that I could find have lesser quality audio. Basically on one ear or one speaker, you can hear talking as well as music. In the other ear or other speaker, you can hear just low music. I also found a version of it cut down to 53 minutes, and that audio is much better. I used as much as that as I could. But some of the audio clips will have a much lower and mono audio, so it'll be one side or the other. So if you don't hear anything, switch to the other ear.
So you need to know all the different contacts that the case may have, and public health will need to then chase up all of those contacts. Once we've found the contacts are quarantined, are provided with vaccination in order to form a ring of protection around that case.
Well, you know, it's easy on paper to say who's in charge. I think the plan looks pretty top-down.
It's easy on paper to say who's in charge. The plan looks pretty top-down. This came out in 2010. What else came out in 2010? Lockstep from the Rockefeller Institute. It's a paper that talks about top-down authoritarianism after a pandemic. Came out the same year.
In reality, the local people are who really matter because they're going to be there. And in practice, I think, we saw this with SARS, that nobody was really in charge. We, in Canada, often become victims of our government arrangements.
And like I said, it also goes back to an 1885 smallpox outbreak in Canada.
In the English community, the pressure to get vaccinated is hard to resist. Editorials in newspapers, even the clergy from their pulpits, urge vaccination. On the streets, people stop each other and compare vaccination scars. Not so in the French community. There, editorials dismiss the smallpox outbreak as English hysteria, and the priests in their pulpits are silent.
Worse than that, you begin to get really disturbing reports that people are saying there's something wrong with the vaccine, or the vaccine is causing sickness.
The rumors are true. The vaccine in use turns out to be contaminated. The English doctor in charge of supplying the vaccine is fired, but the damage is done. For opponents of vaccination, the bad vaccine is a golden opportunity.
Smallpox vaccine has one of the highest rates of side effects of some of the vaccines that we have. Certainly with the vaccine you can get a fever, maybe at least 10% of people could get a fever. There's some complications including a generalized spread of the vaccine virus throughout your body that can cause a bigger rash. It can result in inflammation of the brain or of the heart as well. And so these are pretty serious.
With school openings 2 weeks away, health authorities weigh the risk of side effects, then announce compulsory vaccination of the entire city. Students without vaccination certificates will be turned away at the door. A strict quarantine order goes into effect. Those who refuse vaccination and quarantine will be detained. Health authorities are taking no more chances of the smallpox spreading. Police are sent to padlock every business suspected of being contaminated with the disease.
I think the public has to know this is one of the worst case scenarios in terms of an infectious disease outbreak, in that their cooperation is sought. If there are people who are non-compliant, there are definitely laws and public health powers that can quarantine people in mandatory settings. It's potential you could track people, put bracelets on their arms, have police and other setups to ensure quarantine is undertaken. It is better to be preemptive and precautionary and take the heat of people thinking you might be overreactionary, get ahead of the curve, and then think about whether you've overreacted later. But it's such a serious situation that I think decisive early action is the key.
Police checkpoints are set up on all the bridges, and everyone leaving the city is required to show proof of vaccination. Those who refuse to cooperate are taken away to temporary detention centers. The streets and highways of the city are eerily quiet as the sick remain in quarantine and the healthy stay at home, hoping to escape being infected.
The biggest problem, I think, in a pandemic, and our pandemic plan talks about this in Canada a lot, is what happens when the essential workers don't go to work. And I'm not talking about the doctors and nurses. I think they sort of have a code of ethics and they're going to be there, most of them. But what happens when the Hydro-Quebec workers don't go to work and we don't have electricity? That's the real disaster that's going to happen, and we forget about those people. What happens when the guy who delivers the milk says, hey, I'm not going in my truck. I'm not going to die to deliver milk. That's the real issue if a disease hits.
When I originally made this video in late 2022, I shared it on Twitter, and I tagged this guy, André Picard. And I said, someone should ask @Picard on health how he knew about the, quote, new normal, and how, quote, the new normal can be pretty horrific, but people will get back to their lights in 2010. I have some ideas, but I don't want to assume. And he shared the post I tagged him in, André Picard. This is a 10-second excerpt from a great 2010 NFB documentary. NFB meaning National Film Board. Outbreak, Anatomy of a Plague. If you want to take it as evidence of some grand conspiracy, sure, go ahead. It's a fucking asshole.
Hundreds with smallpox symptoms, real or imagined, flock to the hospitals day and night, demanding treatment.
Where workers are protesting the longer hours and the dangers of infection.
Eventually there's this return to normalcy, whatever the new normal is. And, you know, humans are very, very adaptable to whatever. So the new normal can be a really horrific situation, but people get back to their lives pretty quickly.
The new normal from 2010, the same year that Lockstep came out. The new normal can be pretty horrific, but people will get back to their lives. What are the odds?
Okay, hello, is this thing on? Okay, I haven't spoken in a while. My English not so good. Yeah, so let me just clarify a few things. First of all, I want to congratulate another Chinese woman, Olivia Chow. She's a very smart woman. I know she has a couple side effects from a vaccine, but otherwise she do pretty good. So personally, I do not take a vaccine. I took what you call is a water. You put the water in a vaccine needle, you put in the arm. That's what we give to all the politicians so that they don't have a side effect. Certain politician, maybe the right-wing politician, we give the real vaccine so that they have a side effect. And then hopefully after a couple of months they drop that. That's what we want. So Canadian scientists been putting a lot of work into doing this. Mainly people, let me see here. Let me check my list. Oh yes, the Science Center in Toronto, which Doug Ford wants to make into a big casino to do Chinese Rush Hour 5, maybe film the movie. But I do not want that. I want a specific thing. I want everybody to go get a vaccine, get a Moderna, get a Pfizer, get a AstraZeneca, get a Regal vaccine, get a heroin, get a fentanyl. Do whatever you have to do to get a vaccine. Put a needle in your arm and stay home, stay inside because the virus is going to be very vicious this week.
Fucking stoned.
I got motherfucking spaceship. Oh, fuck. Oh,